welcome to tonight's Zoom at 8. My name is Julianne Peterson, and I am your host today. I work for Old Capital Lending, and if you're not familiar with Old Capital Lending, tonight's the night you get to learn more about Old Capital. We are a premier provider of debt, not only in multifamily, but other asset classes. We are different than most of the mortgage lenders out there. We are a relationship lender. So we are not only your biggest partner in the deal where we bring 70, 75, 80% of the deal, but we also bring limited partners, GPs, syndicators, or sponsors. We bring attorneys, GPs, attorneys, and I was going to say JT, who is a insurance broker, property managers. We have a whole great network that you get to work with when you work with Old Capital. So I invite you, if you have a deal, you're looking at something, you're simply trying to figure out the finance side of it, please reach out to me. I am very accessible. Love to visit with you where we can be of service. So Chris Tao, I met Chris probably, 2-3 months ago. I had seen him in rooms before, but I got to spend some time with him in a couple rooms, and just had the great pleasure of learning what he was doing. He was actually calling me from one of his offices in the at the multifamily location that he owns. So he is the head of acquisitions at Texas Metro Holdings. He is a Texas licensed realtor since 2014. He handles all aspects of the acquisition process, from finding the property, analysis, site visit, to estimating your profit and loss. Chris is a PMP certified by a Project Management Institute. He has over 8 years of experience in property management with a strong emphasis on time, cost, and scope, which make him perfect for this role. He currently is a lead sponsor and asset manager for Urbana Apartments in San Antonio. Urbana is a 204 unit property with 3 chillers. That is tough. His primary focus is increasing occupancy, tenant retention, and reduce costs. These will maximize NOI in order to provide investors with the highest ROI, return on investment. He is very hands-on and is not a dashboard type operator. And when you're looking at a GP, this is the kind of asset manager that you want. So Chris, thank you for joining us. Thank you so much for committing to sharing your knowledge. We really appreciate your time. How are you tonight?
Doing good. Thanks for the invite, Julie. And, just kind of recap everything that Old Capital is talked about and Julie's talking about. By no means this is a pay advertisement of any sort, right? I'm speaking from experience of actually going through Urbana using Old Capital, and everything that Julie have said, building a relationship, helping you putting the team together is spot on, because as we probably talk about tonight, there's points where we're about to fall over on Urbana deal before closing, and Old Capital, through Paul people and various people, that are able to bring the relationship, help us take it to the finish line. And that's what's really valuable, is having people that can take you to the finish line, even though it's raining or storming outside.
Yeah. Well, I agree. And thank you for that plug. I do appreciate it.
No problem.
So Chris, here you are. How long have you been, tell us a little bit about your real estate before you got into multifamily. What was your exposure there?
So my background, it's hopefully similar and can echo a lot of people's similar background. So out of college in 1998, instead of buying Mercedes and BMW like my friends do, I went out and bought a real estate. Primary focus was that, hey, my family didn't make a lot of money. So throughout, as I grew up, my parents always had living in an apartment. So that was one thing for me to do is, hey, instead of my parents still living in an apartment, I live in another apartment. Why not buy a real estate and we all live together, right? So that was a little bit of selfishness, if you want to call it that, to where we can save money. Why give other people profit when you keep it for yourself? So that was 1998. And then fast forward, Decided to move to Austin, Texas in 2005 for a job change and so forth. Kind of gotten used to Austin about a 3 months period, living with a friend of mine, renting out his room. Then realized 3 months in, hey, this is a city I want to stay in for long term. Went out and bought a house. As luck would have it, 2 weeks after closing, brand new house. Dell sends me to China for 3 years on an expat assignment. So 2005 is my official way of getting into being a landlord, being part of an investment uh, ecosystem, right? So from my short amount of network, which at the time is only my realtor, he became my property manager because that's the only person I know. And then trying to control everything from overseas, I learned the pain point of paying $300 for a toilet flapper. Right? It's like, holy cow, who would ever do that? But that's the bill I got and came to find out it's for a flapper. Anyways, so came back and got married with kids. Fast forward, the first house that I bought in Austin is not the greatest neighborhood, so upgraded because we want to be in a better school zone. Kept that house, rented out. In 2014, became a realtor, so I kept everything in house. Why give other people's profit when you can make it your own? Right? Better control and so forth. And then took that same house from 2014 in 2017, kind of seeing, real estate is hot. What can I do to maximize profit? Looked into wholesaling, the typical gamut, right? But from my career, I'm a project manager, so I've been trained for a very long time to anticipate different issues before they arise, so that I always have a forward-looking view to say, this is a possibility. How do I mitigate it? Issue number two, how do I mitigate it, so forth. So before jumping on bigger pockets like everybody else, start calling people and use other people's money and wholesale into a madness, I knew it won't scale if I was making big time in wholesaling or even single family side where I have 100 single family homes, right? How do you handle the roofs, the plumbing, and 100 different locations? You just don't scale. So that's when I knew before diving into doing single family that this is a dead end for me already. So as luck would have it, talking to other people through networking event like this who have done it, basically quote unquote solve the problem, then I say, okay, a friend of mine introduced me to Brad Sumrock. He says for $199, spend 2 day weekend in Dallas. If anything else, you at least understand what multifamily is. So that was it. $200 on a 2 day weekend. Next thing you know, I spent $25,000 buying his personal education program.
What year
So
was that, Chris?
that was 2017, November. So that
So
started my
up to that
multifamily journey.
point, you had single family. You had these 100 units,
Well,
and were
no.
you?
I just had that 2000, that one single family home,
Oh, okay,
right? So I owned it since 2005, turned it into a single family rental
okay.
in 2015. 2017, instead of doing wholesaling, I actually, thanks for bringing that up. I turned it into Airbnb.
Wow,
So
amazing.
have a first hand on quote unquote vertical integrated for a single unit because I have to screen the tenants. I have to text all these guys through Airbnb platform to say, are you just here for a wild party of 20 people or are you here for really want to, not going to ruin the place, right? So customer service,
Oh.
the most expensive item. So not everything at Airbnb is smooth. So I hit a couple bumps where one guy broke the garage door. So it doesn't even come down anymore by the time he checks out. The
Mm.
house is basically wide open. It was an $800 damage and he refuses to pay for it. I'm
Mm.
like, how do you justify breaking my garage door and not pay for it? But that's customer service and
Well, that got you prepared for going the big time when you got into your first multifamily. How people take care of your asset.
I would say so. What Airbnb really taught me is what attracts people. because I have to pay
Mm.
high quality photos, staging the whole place, furniture, right? You know, it's not just my old ugly furniture that I don't want anymore. I put in it and call some professional guys to make ugly furniture looks pretty. Bought brand new stuff, modernize it. I even went as far as look at new home builders, model homes to see what's the trend and use that kind of style and move it into my Airbnb and then
Yeah.
lay on top of professional photos. So in a very short amount of time, I was what do they call the I was already into uh Superhost like in 3 weeks.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of a mindset I have is always, how do I get there faster? How do I get there faster?
Mhm.
What
Mhm.
attracts people? What works and what doesn't?
So you got involved with the Brad Sumrock group, which, if just for high level, it allows you an ecosystem of
Yes.
people that kind of open doors to you. You find deals, and it has capital raising power within that ecosystem.
Correct. Correct.
So, that probably is fairly easy. Can you tell us maybe some of your challenges when we think about, wow, you get a deal and it closes, or rather you capital raise within 4 days? What kind of challenges could that really have? Can you kind of tell us a little bit about your first deal
Oh,
and
absolutely.
how that went through, how that went down?
So it's power of networking.
Yeah.
I talked to a lot of investors recently who wants to get started from East Coast, West Coast, Colorado, you name it. I pretty much talked to them all. And what I keep constantly looking back and tell them is that really it's networking. Network way before you have a deal.
Mhm.
Don't wait until somebody invite you to the GP teams to say, "Hey, John, can you raise 300,000?" Now you're in Julie's podcast. Now you and John Doe's podcast and talk to everybody and scramble trying to come up with $300,000.
Mhm.
Always participate in a networking event like this, so that when there's something ready, you already know Julie, you already know Bill, you already know David White, you know Evelyn. You just say, hey, I know you were looking for this. I found it. Are you interested in investing? That makes it so much easier. And
Yeah.
to your point, Julie, there's so many surprises when when the seller says yes, you awarded this deal because we had proceeds being cut, uh, yeah, so people said that they're worth X, but certain assets don't count, so now they're X
Mhm.
minus Y by
Mhm.
50%. So now you're scrambling to find someone else to fill the shoe and so on and so forth. Yeah, I mean you everything you don't want it to happen always happens.
So tell us a little bit about your first capital raise. First of all, let's step back. How did you find your first deal? Why did you choose to go to San Antonio? Tell us a little bit about that, because that's really important. We always say find, the market. Figure out what the asset is that you want. Figure out what your investors want. How did you decide San Antonio?
So I started by understanding what value I have on the team.
Mm,
If no one had explained it to you this way, there's really only four possible way to bring value to a team, right? Three major ones. So I would say if you're doing a deal that's less than $15 million, you fall into the three categories, right? The one that brings the deal, capital raiser, and operator, right? Who's going to operate the property after you take it down? So if you're under $15 million purchase price, you have to make sure which of the three roles you're going to play. Above 15 million, you could potentially talk about a fourth position, which is net worth liquidity. Okay, because $20 million at 20%, your team needs to have at least $4 million. Sorry, 80%, so $16 million in net worth liquidity, right? So that now you got to think about how many rich people do I have that will put on. You can't have all these large people like this in this room. There's 43 people. Everybody's worth something. So you don't want a team of 43 people just to build up $16 million. No lenders will accept you that way. So, from that first point, I knew I don't have the capital raise ability because that's my first deal. I don't have operation experience because I never done it before. So logically, the only thing I can do is bring the value, bring the deal. And I looked around my proximity. I live in Austin, Texas. The close, everybody talk when they talk about Texas, it's always talk about Texas Triangle, right? Dallas, San Antonio, Houston, and Austin just happened to be part of that triangle. I came from Houston since 1998 when I graduated and moved to Austin in 2005. So I have a biased opinion of Houston. I chose not to be there. So my logical choices now is Dallas or San Antonio. Dallas is the headquarters of Sumrock. Everybody buys in Dallas Fort Worth. I cannot drive there fast enough to even compete with those guys. So I purposely chose San Antonio because the proximity and truly where I can find value and bring to the team. And that's what's really landed that first deal is I found a deal through my network. I call up my Rolodex to say, hey, who's interested in San Antonio market? And found my partners who physically cannot be in San Antonio. So now their weakness is my strength, and my weakness, which is capital raise, net worth liquidity operation, it's their strength. So that's how we formed that team.
So are you still on the same team? Do you go to each of the next deal with the same team, or have you changed players?
I have changed players because what I have found out is that just as much as capital prefer a certain location, GPs also prefer a certain location. Mm-hmm. So my two partners, one of them wants to go in Florida, which I can't add value because I have operation experience, but he's got more doors than I do. So he's got a leg up for that. Plus, it doesn't make sense for me to fly out to Florida to try to source that deal. So he partnered with someone else in the Florida market. Same thing as, certain other co-sponsors I talk to. Some of them say, hey, I love Austin, but can't get a deal done in Austin. Some people like San Antonio, so they come to me for that. Some people wants to even be in South Texas near the border, which I can't. The more you know me, the more you understand I'm a Texas boy because I've been to, I would say, about 8 cities that I either live in or have large family in there. So kind of know a lot of a lot of Texas market because of that. So I know where I can bring value, where I cannot. Sticking with the same GP, I think it's a little bit short-sighted because there are 50 states and multiple beautiful cities. So it's all about networking. If I can do it with a 204 unit, I can network enough to find my next set of sponsors.
So are you saying that you're working with in other areas as well? I would say yes, since we are looking at a couple different deals recently. So that's great.
Right.
Now, will you also work outside of the Brad Sumrock group?
Yes, I will.
Okay. Let's just talk about your first deal. How did the capital raising, because I think a lot of people here are afraid of capital raising or just get really concerned, like, how do I do that? Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I know with Brad Sumrock's group, another reason why people do it is you can have a webinar on Tuesday and it can be funded on Friday.
Oh, yes.
I mean, in really good days, that's how it is. What is your thought? Can you share a little bit about how you have looked outside potentially of the Brad Sumrock group to make connections and have them come onto your deal?
Yes. So I equate Brad Sumrock as all the education programs, right? Neil Bawa, Michael Blanc, Brad Sumrock, Rockcliffe are individual ecosystems, right?
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is Brad Sumrock's, their bread and butter is Dallas Fort Worth, Texas market. Okay. If you pump out something in the Texas market, 8% cash on cash, close to 1.9x equity multiple, you can fundraise all day long and people will just write checks as much as you need, right? Michael Blanc might have a different set of numbers. 1% acquisition fee, 7% with a 7% prep with a waterfall, so on and so forth. And then everybody has a different structure, right? Neil Bowell, I looked at his so many deals. He's touching everything, right? From opportunity zone to new constructions, the whole gambit. So the easiest way to fundraise is finding out where your Rolodex is coming from. So the people is primary brass and rock. You probably don't want to talk to them about a waterfall because you'll never get fundraised in a waterfall structure inside a brass and rock ecosystem. But it will work perfectly fine in, let's say, Michael Blanc, right? I'm making things up here. I don't know if he specifically only do waterfall and so on and so forth. So look at your people, which ecosystem they're from, then trying to pitch what they like. And then there will be a group of people who got family office or just a rich uncle who says, hey, I'm okay with a 4% guaranteed, or sorry, shouldn't you use the word guaranteed? 4%, no upside. I like my money easy and don't disturb me. Then that's what you bring him, right? So fundraising is about matching. It's like I equate that to going out to eat. Some people like spicy food, right? Juicy steak. So if you're a steak eater, don't bring them a salad. If you're a vegetarian, don't bring them the best steak in the house. So it just doesn't match. So you got to find out what their tastes are and then give them what they want and they will buy it.
That's a great point. Great analogy. Have you found that the environment has changed in COVID in terms of what you're finding out there on cash returns? Tell us a little bit about that. What are you seeing, and are you looking at deals? How specifically are you looking to close in this environment?
So I think there's more. I think there. I think the investor these days falls into three camps. The first camp, they are looking for some type of COVID-19 discount. Okay, what that means is they kind of still want an aggressive, either cash on cash or overall return, right? Because they want to seize the moment. They believe that there should be blood in the street, so they want deals like that. And there's a second camp where people kind of really want to be really conservative. They like a little bit of COVID discount, but if it's no COVID discount, it's fine. But they want a strong cash flow, right? 7 to 8%, even 9% cash on cash. No rent increase in the first year. They're okay with a secondary, tertiary, even a tertiary market, as long as their money feels safe to them, right? And then there's the third camp where I think they're pricing themselves out the market because they want a very stabilized cash on cash. They want appreciation, 2x my money at the end of the day, and steep 20% COVID-19 discount, for example. But some of those unicorn deals that really doesn't come up these days. So that would be the third camp of people.
Is there something that you would say has been made you successful in reaching out to certain people? Like, do you find that the tech people or the people that you've been involved with from a property, I don't know, you were in engineering before. So do you find that you've had success in different types of clients?
Yes. So if you guys haven't heard this term, there is a tech exit or tech migration that's happening. That's describing the people who get to work remote and able to move around, right? Particularly to people in the East Coast and the West Coast. So just being in Austin and having the news article of Tesla having a gigafactory here, Apple, Amazon is opening large offices here. A lot of California investors are coming to me to say, hey, Chris, I want to park my money in Austin. I don't need cash on cash. I know that appreciation is going to be there. So they're coming to me for single family homes, and they're coming to me for small apartment complexes, right? 20 units, 30 units, and so on and so forth, where 2 to 3 people can come in on a JV and take small deals down. So naturally, when I talk to them about, hey, uh, you're not going to get 8% cash on cash, they say, oh, that's fine. We're, as long as we don't go upside down on a monthly basis, we're okay.
Yeah.
So, talking to them about a very expensive Austin purchase, they're not afraid of. While other investor from, I even had, I think it was a Colorado investor in a, yeah. So basically where I'm at from Austin and San Antonio, it's almost easily to divide by high expensive out of town wants to invest in Texas. They're not afraid of Austin prices.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in about same price point as Austin or DFW, like Oklahoma City, um, gosh, anywhere in the Sun Belt where the price doesn't go up that high, then they want a tertiary market, right? Abilene, Texas. I know a lot of investors fleet over to Abilene, Texas, because the military base is paying out paycheck nonstop. There's in Abilene, Texas. I don't think they even know what a COVID-19 is or the pandemic because everybody's still employed. Government still keep them happy, and landlords are getting 95% collection compared to previous month. I mean, never scared to be, and that's the best performing one. And most people don't even know where Abilene, Texas is.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So you're going after the tech. So you'd recommend our listeners talk about how they can reach out to tech employees in tech. I agree. I think it's fantastic.
Here's a funny story. By talking to so many California folks, now I learned this phrase. They say Austin, Texas is the cheapest city in California.
Yeah.
So I'm like, it took me 2 seconds. And I'm like, you're right. I do see a lot of California people here. Our city governor it's Democrat and sing the same song as Californian. So I get that, right? So, and I tell this comment to all the California folks. They all like, yep, I agree. So, and they see that. They see the town being, everybody wants to come from California, go to Austin, and they see the price will go up because all the California people are coming. So what I've noticed if I'm talking to these guys is that these tech exited people are going after well-known cities. So they're start to think about leaving by choice, right? Maybe summertime in Austin to enjoy South by Southwest, the FY racing here, and then pack up their bags during wintertime to go to Denver, Colorado for 3 months, right? So they don't want to look at a 12-month lease. They're looking for, how do I rent a house and bring roommates with me and we'll rent it out for bedrooms and stuff like that. So they want to kind of hop around. So if there's a large congregate of people doing that, then your strategy will be to look for deals in these primary markets. Atlanta, Georgia, Colorado, basically anything with international airport. Don't look at Abilene, Texas, because that's not where they're going to go. Don't look at Corpus Christi because that's not a paradise city in Texas, even though it's next to the ocean.
So over the you've been doing this since 2017.
Mm-hmm.
What have you learned? What do you want to share about what you've learned? Some of your struggles. Did you have a fire? Have you had?
I don't have a fire, but I have
a lot of
chiller problem.
Chiller problem. Have you had to fire several property managers? So I know people always like to hear, the
good news,
exciting things that are always somewhat negative. But for what can people learn?
I will have to say, really, the hardest part about multifamily is after closing. There's more people kind of focus on how to buy it, but not many people talk about how to operate it. And that's where the money's being made, right? Everything up to closing, it's all just a number on a paper. Nobody ever budgeted a pandemic. What did we have? 13% unemployment back in April-ish timeframe. I mean, 08, 09 only up to, I think, 9% at the highest point. We're 13%, and now we're back down, right? eviction moratorium. Lender says no, you cannot evict. CDC for crying out loud saying you cannot evict. Anything that's basically never under a condition that you will never underwrite. It's here. It's a
Yeah.
reality.
Yeah.
So then how do you navigate and still make that return? It's the power of the GP and the strength of the property management company. And that's why COVID-19, as Judy kind of talked about, we were doing once a week call before COVID. When COVID hits, we're doing twice a week calls, and I do on-site visit. I used to visit once a month, and now I visit once every 2 weeks, depending on, the health conditions, so on and so forth, right? And what I do, here's a major takeaway. When you start getting yourself into the operation of things, I started going once every 2 weeks, once
Yeah.
announced and once surprise visit, right? And you want to do that if you really want to watch over your property management company, because the reason I do a schedule announced visit is because last time I went to the property and I said, hey, here's the punch list, you got to get it fixed, right? You tell me how many days it will take you to fix it. That's kind of my project management 101. You never push your employee or your task doer on the timeline that you want it. You ask them, hey, how much time will it take you, so that they are committed themselves. So I've always asked, here are the 4 things I need you to get done. How long would it take you to do it? And then I'll say, okay, great, 4 days. My next scheduled visit is 4 days. I will expect you to finish all 4 of them because you said that you will get it done, right? And then I'll come back during the scheduled visit, and then I'll quickly come after a surprise visit, because you kind of want to catch them in the act and see, are you just really looking busy when I'm there, or are you busy realistically, right? And then when you do on site, make sure you watch in the morning and watch things at night, right? The purpose of watching in the morning is because you want to see who's got a job, because if your parking lot's still full, that means a lot of people don't have a job, except pandemic era,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
So you want to watch who's at work. I like to see an empty parking lot as much as possible in the morning, because people should be out working. And then you want to see who's coming home at night, right? Who are bringing their friends, who's having party late at night. When the office is closed, is everybody having their barbecue pit outside and drinking and jumping in the pool and so on and so forth, right? So you kind of want to see, who's the troublemaker of your tenant base. I hate to share this sad story. I walk around and I kind of once in a while and I say, hey, I'm from corporate office. I talk to the tenant. Never let them know that you're the owner, but I like to talk to the tenants. Okay. And just kind of say, hey, I'm from corporate office. How's this place doing? Do you like the management? Do you not? If you don't feel comfortable talking about that you're from the corporate office, you say, you can pretend that you're wanting to rent here, talk to your tenant and say, what do you think about this place? Are you happy living here? What kind of problem? And I'll tell you, it's a great tidbit. I did that during COVID and came to find out property management companies dropping the ball. We had squatters, which your tenants know about it, but property management company didn't tell you about. Imagine that, right? The tenant knows about it, but your property management company don't tell you. And then I found out there was, just a bunch of poor condition, mistreated tenants. So I quickly create a long punch list that these are the things you have to get done. And they're surprised that I even found out. So every time I go on site, I always take a camera with me to take pictures of what I notice is not right, what I notice that needs to be improved on. I document by days, right? Which day the picture came from. And the next time I go, and the same thing's still there. And the next time I go, same thing's still there. Then now you have a track record to say, Mr. Property Management Company, I told you 3 times to fix this thing. Why is it still not fixed?
That is amazing information. We don't hear the stories about how these things are managed. What I hear a lot of, like you said, let's get into it and then pass it off to the management company. And you make phone calls once a month and, talk amongst each other. But
Yeah.
this is really, you are really in the trenches. We don't get to hear a lot of that. How many hours would you say you spend at the facility a month?
Holy cow. Just so at the property is different. I would say the total 1 month time I spend just managing the property or asset management the property twice a week, 1 hour, 2 hours a week call. On-site visit is easily 10 hours a whole day. So anywhere from 15 to 17 hours a month.
Wow. Amazing. I mean,
Yeah, and I write the
that's,
newsletters and I yeah, go ahead, Jim.
Are we going to have questions, Julie? Because there are a
yes.
few in the chat box wanting to know
Oh.
if Chris has ever had to fire a PM.
Oh, thank you.
Not yet.
In the process, if I have it my way, I've already fired a property management company 4 times. We just haven't pulled the trigger yet.
Yeah.
Is there any other question? Oh, make this thing fluid.
Yeah.
Feel free to ask questions and get off mute and just fire away your question.
Chris, is that also because you didn't have the sole power? In other words, you may have pulled the trigger sooner, but one of the things about syndications and having partners is you're married for a long time, and sometimes you have to acquiesce to the wife in the partnership.
Yeah, so now don't go out and do everything I told you to do. You kind of have to manage your property management company gently in a way. So what I mean by that is, this is my first deal, 204 unit, right? The property management company we use, they have 10,000 doors. So who's Chris Tao to tell him what to do when he's only got 204 units, right? But my business partner's got, I think, 4 property with that company. So when he talks, he weights more. At the same time, he's more married to that property management company than I am, right? So if my if my business partner start to subtract from his portfolio, now he's getting closer to closer in losing his control or influence to the property management company. So you kind of have to, I get to push a lot of buttons because my partner has 4 properties. And then, you know, in a way they have to listen to me because my partner, plus I bring evidence. This is not, hey, you know, there's a chip on the brick size of a quarter, so Chris wants you to go spend 2 hours and painting it to match. No, this is like people squatting in the property that tenants know about, but property management company has not make a sound about. I'm losing money because they're squatters. This is a real problem, and I can prove it. So now I can say, hey, unless you guys agree, unless Mr. Property Management Company says, no, Chris, stop. This is the way you're supposed to run a property management company, or you're supposed to manage a property with squatters not paying rent. Then, you know, then I say, hey, you know what? If industry's doing this, maybe, right? I should just shut up and keep going.
Hey, Chris, James Verisco wants to know what you meant by a COVID discount.
COVID discount is discount on the price. So, you know, what was worth maybe $10 million in November of 2019, now it's worth $9 million. And that could be a factor of decreasing of NOI or increasing of cap rate. So remember, the way, because I'm a realtor, I know how broker does stuff like this. The way they're going to present you with any type of offering, it's always a factor of NOI divided by cap rate equal retail price, right? Some brokers will say, okay, this property's got XYZ issue, or we're in an Austin market, so it needs to justify for a higher NOI that's not on the T12. Don't believe in that, okay? Evaluation is always based upon T12 NOI divided by cap rate equal retail price. Why this is so important? Because that's how lender is giving you money. Lender doesn't look at a pro forma a nice number on Excel, right? You can bump rent by $200 during COVID. Lenders will never believe that. At most, lender will say, what's the T3 analyzed NOI over a T12 expenses? Sometimes if you have a very unique situation, I've seen lender go as far as one analyzed T1 NOI over T12 expenses. That's the most aggressive, maybe 5% of the deal lender will ever look at that. That's got to be a sweetheart of a deal before they be that aggressive. So for you to overpay based upon a broker's best picture, it's not doing yourself a service. Does that answer the question?
Yes,
Yes.
and
I have a question. Actually, it's in the chat box. So we're looking at property management software. What do you use, as well as the software for your investors? What do you use for your syndications?
Oh, software for syndication.
Yeah, so your investor portal. What do you use an investor portal?
At the time of Urbana, we didn't use an investor portal. It's not feasible, economical, until you get about 3 properties. Because one of the bigger names, and I looked into them all, IMS popped into my mind. I think their monthly service is, I want to say $5,000 a month. Okay. No, it's $5,000 per property per year. There we go. So that equates to about 100, maybe $200 a month. You don't want to have a investor portal at a monthly fee when you don't even have a deal that makes money, right? So that is going to add to your overhead. So you can, but most people, until they get to 3 property or more, just use an Excel. If you want to, I've seen a lot of my colleagues use Active Campaign as a CRM to track who's collecting on who's looking at your emails and who's attending and who's posting on social media, those kind of things.
So on your software for your property management, what are you using?
We use Resman. So as much as I looked into this as well, you don't get to choose. The property management company chooses for you.
Okay. Yeah.
So property management company, whoever you choose, they say, this is my application suite. As part of the deal, you have to use it, and you pay the license fee. I haven't heard anyone was able to convince a property management company that, hey, I want to use John Doe's management application, so forth.
So you talked about your team right now. Is that 3 people that you have on your immediate team? Is 3?
Officially, it's 4, including myself.
Okay. And how do you account for the lessened collections, if any, during COVID, and the possibility of buying property that has tenants that are under this eviction moratorium? How do you look at that? Does that cause any concern for you?
Oh yeah, it's causing a big problem right now. So be careful with what the government do. So one of the things that's happening, you're always going to have bad apples. So walking into a deal, especially even before pandemic, you already know. So here's what most people don't tell you. When you buy a deal right before sale, the seller always stuff it. What that means is, in order to get agency debt, everybody knows your occupancy has to be above 90%. But that's as far as the rule goes. It didn't say anything about these people pay rent. So what they'll do is the seller will stuff it. Anybody with a pulse will say, hey, sign a contract, live in here for free. Your occupancy now looks pretty at 95%. This is standard operation before COVID, right? So as soon as you buy it, now you realize, hey, your economic vacancy is higher than you estimated. Now you got to evict all these people. So take a look at it and see who's paying rent, who's not. During COVID, just automatically assume that you're going to have bad apples. I have it. People that figure it out just going to squat to say you cannot evict me, and there's nothing you can do about it. The worst part about it is they will tell their friends, people that lives on your property, say, hey, I'm living here for 3 months free. Come join me, and post a sign says, what's the sign that was on the news now? Free rent or
Rent strike.
Rent strike. Thank you. So we have that in the property too. People start talking about they shouldn't pay rent. So budget for that when you buy during COVID to see how much of it is. And you can look at the way I tell how bad it can be is how much retail your property is dependent on, right? If you're next to a hospital, you probably don't have to worry about your tenant not paying, but you're surrounded by, like my property is right next to the mall. We're hurt. Mall is not a happy place right now. So if you're next to SeaWorld or Orlando, Florida, right next to Disney, probably look for a large amount of delinquency. That's what I look for.
Wow. Well, this is amazing information.
Well, here's another tidbit. If you want to sound savvy in front of your broker, ask them for 30, 60, 90 delinquency report.
Excellent. Anybody else have a question? It looks like, do you ever get tenants to fill out any sort of estoppel agreements to make sure tenants are not stuffed?
No.
Yeah.
The reason is it's hard to prove it.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you prove that, right? And also, remember, one of the worst part about this whole pandemic, the debt is cheap. Your competition is higher than pre-COVID. So even in Austin, I got outbidded by $1 million on a deal that we're in best and final for. And they put in I want to say $200,000 hard money day one during COVID. Non-refundable. And that's a competition you have. So going against a $200,000 hard money day one, I'm not going to put in a statement to say you're certified you're not stuffing it, because the seller is going to be picky to say, why do I want to make trouble with Chris when I can take this other guy $200,000 and have a walk in the park for closing? Because he's not walking away from $200,000.
Yeah, true. All right, we need to wrap this up. So is there anybody else have a question? Would love to just make sure that you guys have all of your questions answered before we go into our networking. It's really important we network. So unless anybody has a question, I'll give you 30 seconds to jump on if you've got a question. All right, you guys.
Can I ask a question for Chris?
Thanks,
yes,
Chris.
please.
Yeah, so Chris, tell us about what's next. Like, what's the plan? Where do you want to get to?
So I want to build up my capital raise ability to $3 million and then start to take on deals that's my plan to take down deals comes in two categories. One, distressed properties. I tell people the same secret, so feel free to take it. Las Vegas is a distressed location. It's going to come back after pandemic. That's an easy, logical choice, right? Everybody loves gambling. Airline don't fly there as much. So having capital ready to jump into distressed cities like Las Vegas will involve investors that are not for faint of heart, because honestly, by the time people don't pay rent in Las Vegas, the property is pretty bad, right? Julie's not going to give you agency debt because it's probably 70%, 60% occupied with, graffiti in the interior. So you're going to have to find hard money lender or bridge lender or bank lender that was willing to give you really low leverage to take on that deal. And the second category I'm looking at is top 10 markets like Austin. It's continue to ride the wave. And I tell a lot of investors the same thing, is that, from a realtor, single family realtor side, I see it. I just helped my friend close a deal in July of this year for $800,000 single family home. He has to pay $40,000 over the asking price. That's pretty rare in Austin. And this happened during the pandemic. So people buying Austin single family homes are rich people, right? So, and I
Oh, from
explained to
California.
a lot of investors, normally during a recession, the price should come down. And as you exit, it goes up. Austin price hasn't come down yet. So on the other side, the price will keep going up. So right now is the perfect time to buy Austin, no matter how expensive it is. Tesla hasn't even opened their doors yet, and they're known to open a factory in 12 months. So in 2021, there's going to be so many pent up demand for housing when Tesla opens. So I'm going to focus on hot markets like that: Atlanta, Georgia, Austin, Texas, San Antonio, Tucson, Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona, Colorado is one of them, and North Carolina is also one of them.
Yeah. All right. Well, we see how
Chris.
we can get a hold of you, like Chris, right? All of your contact information is right there for everybody.
Hey,
We
by the way,
appreciate.
Julie, so thanks for bringing that up. So Julie
Yes.
in her webinar really helped me grow to the next level. So I'm offering anybody who wants their contact information, so you don't have to keep typing in chat, shoot me a message. I'll post a link in the open chat. Just provide me your information and what you want on your background. We'll build it for you for free.
Look at that. Your green screen.
Yes.
Chris is amazing. Always creating value. This is fabulous. Well, I thank you so much, Chris, for dropping those golden nuggets, and you're just fabulous. And I'm so proud to have you on my team. So thank you so much. Chris,
No problem.
you're a syndicator, you're a deal sponsor. Chris makes himself available. If there's a deal that you guys are looking for, that you need a sponsor, Chris is open to helping you on that. And of course, Old Capital will be there to hold your hand as well.